Hey, I'm Derek Ashong. Welcome to the stream. Today we are having a great show talking about some issues in Latin America. We're going to cover 2 different countries. It's going to be really exciting. Right now you're in the pre-show where we get a chance to talk about some of the issues that are currently in the news. We'll be going to broadcast in just a sec, and then during the post-show we'll be getting deeper into some of the issues we've raised. Ahmed, Montserrat, great to see you both. Ahmed, I know we've been looking at this issue, this controversy currently going down in Iran. Tell us a little bit about what's going on with Ahmadinejad and his parliament.
Well, you know, it's interesting. This is something that we've been talking about today, but on our website, on the 21st of May, we had a story talking about how his oil ministry move was illegal. So what was it? Essentially, in case you don't know, it's a power grab that he tried to do to put himself in control of this unit, which is, the country, it's the Oil and Petroleum Council, and it's the 5th largest exporter of oil in the world. So
and he dismissed the former head.
Yeah, it was part of some sort of government shakeup. They downsized from 21 ministries to 17, and so in the process, somehow he became in charge of, he would have been Iran's representative to OPEC, so there are a lot of different implications of this.
Yeah, I just think it's really interesting, how does a president install himself in a cabinet post? I mean, it seems to be like quite a stretch.
Like an interim, some sort of, because in this article it says, according to the law in Iran, a president has 3 months after removing a minister, which is what happened during the shakeup, to introduce a new candidate. So rather than doing that, I think he just said, well, I'll do it.
Yeah, interim president for life.
Yeah,
sort of.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Is he a specialist?
No. In oil?
Yes.
I don't believe so.
What's his background?
That's a really good question. I would imagine economics, but
so
I
you
could
have
find
an
out
economist in charge of the
well, that's the question.
country. Oh, yeah.
Well, yeah, and even on Press TV, I like those questions. Just grilling it. Lawmakers are now saying that they're going to submit some sort of a report because people are really upset on, the people, but presumably also the people in power in Iran outside of his branch. They're saying that it's a huge violation of the government, and so many in the Mejlis, which is the parliament, are saying that they're opposed to this, and even if it's a temporary move, they're still going to be opposed to it. I mean, it's too much power.
But this whole thing about reducing the cabinet to 17,
right.
That's also what is coming
orders
from the IMF,
that's
the
a
World
good question.
Bank.
No, Iran is not really taking orders from anyone. It's interesting though,
because but they must be happy about it, right?
Well, part of what's happening is there's an internal power struggle. Because some people feel that Ahmadinejad is gaining too much influence, and historically he's had the backing of the Ayatollah. But now it seems that there's a little bit of distance between them, such that with some of the people who he dismissed, the Ayatollah then reinstated them. And so the question now is, okay, is Ahmadinejad potentially losing political credibility internally, because not just outsiders don't like him or the opposition doesn't like him, but is the actual religious supreme council, is the supreme leader starting to draw back from giving him political cover?
Yeah.
That's why this is interesting. It's almost like it's indicative of a bigger power struggle.
But when it comes to Iran, I always thought it was very interesting that for so many years, no new refinery capacity has been built, really. That they have to export to refine oil. I mean, it's one of the largest oil-producing countries in the world.
Yeah, right? I don't know a lot about the refinery system there. So you're saying that basically they're
5th largest.
No, but that's as an exporter. But the ability, she's talking about the ability to actually refine.
To produce gasoline.
Yeah, gasoline internally. So so tell us a little
Libya,
bit
for
about
example, I don't know much, but I understand that it's my understanding that Iran does not have that capacity. For example, Libya has it still.
Has it?
Yes.
Okay,
and I never understood why Iran
wouldn't
never
develop
did that.
Because they're trying to build nuclear capacity.
Yeah.
But to that point, actually, I do want to check in with our Skype guest to make sure she can hear us. Can you hear us okay, Isabel?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. We're just doing a little bit of conversation during our pre-show about some current events, and then we're going to be going live on television in just a few, so really appreciate you joining us, and we'll be bringing you on shortly.
Okay. Thank you very much. Hi. Hi, everyone.
Derek, a quick stat.
Go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. Just to back up your point, in 2008, just a quick search, we found that Iran actually had to import, or 40% of its market share, for oil, even though they were producing so much because of their lack of refining capacity.
Yeah. So, but see, this is the thing that I think is so interesting. It's like, why would they be so caught up in the nuclear power issue
Right.
if they have so much development that's possible, even in being able to refine their existing resource?
But that's something that Iranians
and Arabic. Carry on.
Iranians should ask themselves what kind of development they want for their country, social development, and what kind of benefits should they reap from this? Because exporting natural resources doesn't really make them a better country for most of them.
But isn't that the same issue in much of Latin America, that these countries are basically
exporting and then re-importing the stuff they're exporting?
Even in the Gulf.
It
happens everywhere. Even in the Gulf.
It's across Africa. It's like we've got tons of natural resources. We export them all so that we can buy back the finished goods.
Well, the incentive, if people want and need these goods, if you can sell them and then you can spend the money elsewhere, why should you use your own? For example,
and it's not that difficult, really.
Well, Kuwait and Saudi Arabia get a lot of their, electricity demands from gas coming from Qatar, even though they could use their own because it's cheaper. It's better. It's in their interest financially.
But I think those guys are in a slightly different situation than countries where, you'd make more money if you had that those additional levels of refinement of whatever given product. It's
value added to the
the value added. That's where the real money is.
Yes.
But most developing countries never see those value
It's because
added.
they won't let them, I think.
I
don't think. Yes, of
because
course.
You're talking about global market forces and existing players.
Big companies, they won't let them do that. No, of course not.
Yeah.
Well,
because like Latin America, for example, should not have. Well, some of the countries, of course, but the majority of the countries should not have any poor people. None.
Yeah.
I mean, we have so much.
You mean
we
resources?
Sell it, and natural resources.
Well,
or in food production, Argentina, for example, have such an impoverished middle class, right? And it's still one of the main producers of food.
Hey, I just want to get a quick tweet in there because, he's always tweeting Nicholas Slayton. He's saying, and you can make a correlation to Bush. Ahmadinejad had basically strengthened the executive branch to its strongest, just not what the people or the clerics want.
Okay, well, so this is something we'll keep our eyes on. We're going to get ready to go live now in just a sec. Thanks for joining us in the pre-show. We're about to go to air. Stay with us. We're diving into Latin America today. We'll be with you in a sec. Hi, I'm Derek Ashong, and you are now in The Stream, a social media community with its own daily TV show. We are bringing you stories that are ongoing, global, and sourced from social media. Today, polarized in Peru, the difficult presidential choices for Peruvian voters, and why university education could soon be out of reach for many students in Chile. As always, our digital producer, Ahmed Shiab Eldin, is here, and joining us on the couch today is columnist Montserrat Nicolas, who pushes for more accountability and transparency in Latin American politics through her blog, Curvas Políticas. Welcome, Montserrat. Glad to have you in the stream. Tell us what Curvas is all about.
It's about international politics and international relations from a point of view of Latin America mostly.
Okay, so
and
it's
women in politics kind of thing.
Women in politics. Okay, so you're going to be you're the perfect person to have here today because we're going to be talking about a very influential woman in Latin American politics and some of the challenges that are arising in the campaign there. Before we get deeper into that, I want to go to Ahmed to find out a little bit about what people have been feeding the stream.
Well, a lot of people are talking about, and we've been talking about on our show, the role of Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube, and the role they played in the Arab Awakening, but also in other protests. And today we have a perfect example. We have this tweet from UGRP that's telling us of YouTube having made essentially a 13-year-old boy in Syria the symbol of the Syrian uprising. So he sent us this link.
And now YouTube didn't make him the symbol. He's becoming
because
the
of
symbol.
YouTube. Yeah.
But that tweet specifically said that YouTube unblocked it.
Right, exactly.
Because it's a very graphic
But he's become a symbol because of the role that YouTube has played. So they've unblocked this video of this 13-year-old boy, And it was uploaded last week, allegedly showing the boy being tortured, castrated, and killed by the Syrian government, supposedly, right? After being separated from his family at a protest earlier in April. So this video is very graphic. So we're not going to play the video, but here it is. If you want to watch it, we'll be tweeting this out. It was uploaded last week and banned by YouTube. But journalists and activists and human rights groups were able to convince YouTube to essentially show the video.
And let's be clear, from my understanding, it's not a video of him being tortured and castrated.
No.
But it is a video of his body.
Yes, that was sent home to his parents, and his parents shot this video, filmed it, and sent it out to SFP. You can see right here. And you know what I want to focus on is here we have, this has galvanized like new protests in Syria, and a lot of people are anticipating that on Friday there'll be, even larger protests. It has even created this Facebook group in, just a short span of a week. Right here it's called in Arabic, Kullina Shahid al-Tifl Hamza Ali al-Khatib, which in Arabic means we are all, the martyr, the child Hamza Ali al-Khatib. And it already has 67,000 people. So,
well, it's such a sad image when you see that kid, he's so beautiful, so happy, joyful, and then you see the image of him, of his dead body.
Yeah.
And I can't comprehend why the security forces would do that to a little kid.
Well, the government, Syrian, it's called the Arab News Agency, the government's kind of news organization in Syria, of course, is saying that these are lies and false accounts that are being spread on satellite channels.
Yeah. So we don't know for what's happened, but allegedly it is security forces.
What do you make?
Maybe the Syrian government normally do not. I mean, people do tend to believe something if they have some kind of previous knowledge of it.
Right.
So I don't know how the Syrian government treat kids.
Right.
Right, if they treat them extremely well.
Right, if there's a precedent, you're saying.
Yeah, for example, in Chile, I mean, you go to a protest, you know you're going to get tear gas within 10 minutes.
Right.
I've been tear gas every single time I've gone to a protest.
Yeah, well, hopefully we could talk about that a little later.
But the same thing in Syria. I mean, if the Syrian government really want to show some kind of civilized approach towards their people, then people wouldn't believe that, right?
Right, no, you're totally right. I mean, perhaps we want to focus on another story that came in, though, and this came into our feed, the stream box. So Harris Seldon told us that there are some serious demonstrations in Greek cities for more than a week now, and they want us to cover this.
Syntagma.
There's supposedly, exactly, tens of thousands of people, everybody in Syntagma Square, and last night the Prime Minister had to actually be smuggled out of the Parliament through the National Garden. Now,
through the park in the back.
They smuggled the Prime Minister out?
Right, because there were 50,000 people blocking the entrance to the
And these are
Parliament.
obviously in response to the austerity measures in Greece.
Yes, exactly. And we just want to quickly highlight, just to give you a sense of, people having these live streams set up so that you can essentially see what's going on in the square at all times. So as you can see right here, this is a feed through the link that was sent to us from this user, and you can kind of keep an eye on. There's the Parliament in the background, and people are still gathering there.
So this is a live feed we're watching.
It's 11 p.m. almost, I think, in Greece, and so this is a live feed. Remember, wherever you are, if you have videos, if you have stories, if you have something, if you want to get your voice heard, please share it with us. You can tweet us at AJStream.
Hi, my name is Juan. I'm from dreamactivist.org, and I use social media to help undocumented youth across the United States. I'm on the stream.
It's been a bitter and angry campaign, and on June 5th, voters in Peru get to elect their new leader in a presidential runoff. The choices are conservative candidate Keiko Fujimori, whose father, ex-president Alberto Fujimori, is in jail for corruption and human rights abuses, and leftist politician Ollanta Humala, who critics say could end up hurting Peru's economic boom. If you look at my screen, this is an image of people, students out in the streets, allegedly protesting against Fujimori, although this first person looks a little bit older than the average student. But we have lots and lots of images of people protesting. This video shows a march that took place just a few days ago.
¿Por qué estás en contra de Keiko Fujimori?
Muchos hemos vivido el gobierno de su padre y definitivamente durante su gobierno se han atropellado.
And the interesting thing to me about this video is they showed all kinds of different people from all different walks of life that were basically marching against Keiko. Now the issue here is basically Keiko Fujimori was the former first lady, ironically, because the president and his wife divorced while he was in office. And so in the 1990s, he made his daughter the first lady. So she is very closely associated with the regime that has been cited for human rights abuses, corruption. The head of their intelligence service was was indicted for arms trafficking, and Fujimori is
300,000
300,000 exactly forced sterilization of 300,000 women. I mean, serious and significant human rights abuses.
He's serving a prison sentence.
He's serving a 25-year prison sentence. So now you have a situation where Keiko is actually the front runner, and Humala won the first round of the elections, but right now she's been the front runner as we've been going towards this runoff. And so the question I would love to bring to you, Montserrat, is why are people in Peru so divided between these two candidates? Wouldn't it seem natural that they wouldn't want to go back to the Fujimori days, given what it was like? What is the appeal of Keiko or the lack of appeal of Humala?
Well, yeah, I think the poll numbers show that they're extremely tight, right?
Yes.
That's one thing. And second is that I don't really trust the polls coming out of Peru.
Yeah.
So we just have to get a sense of it. I think more than preferring Keiko over Humala is more a sense of very strong negative feeling towards the political class in Peru, right? Peru has a very strong economy, as to say, right now. They're growing, like they should, obviously.
Yeah.
But over 60% of their exports belong to the mine companies. And they do not have any solid base where more than that to bring in money, of course, to the state.
So it's like we were talking about during the pre-show. It's like they're basically tied to that export-based economy of raw materials as opposed to finished goods.
Yes.
The interesting thing
so
here is a lot.
Yes, because you have this whole thing. Imagine you have a former president in jail for decades now, right?
Yeah.
But Keiko, his daughter says that he's going to pardon him as soon as she becomes president.
Absolutely.
Which is illegal in the Constitution, right?
Yeah, but
This is
Latin
really,
American constitutions are like, well, one time it doesn't.
There was a quote that said she said her hand would not tremble if she had to sign a pardon for her father.
Wouldn't you, as a daughter, that's absolutely consistent with it?
What else would you expect? This is an image, one of her campaign slogans, and she's obviously been getting a lot of people, from what I've been reading, a lot of the poor, as well as a number of women have been supporting her, partially because of some of the populist rhetoric that she's had, but also some of the populist policies that the original Fujimori had. And this is an image inside of her same pamphlet. That's Keiko, you see it signal, Keiko Presidente, and then it's got an image of her dad right there. So it's not like he's running away from it. And we spoke to a couple of people on the ground in Peru, and they were telling us, look, the whole pre-existing Fujimori machine that was behind his political endeavors in the 90s and up till 2000, well, they're saying that machine is starting to work in Keiko's favor. And I want to show one more image before we discuss. Just speaking of this idea of the forced sterilization, this is a very powerful image that we saw of women protesting against, as part of the No Keiko campaign, and basically they're showing images of bloodied uteruses, and the idea that this man literally forced women to be sterile.
300,000. It's an enormous amount of women.
It's genocidal, because he's basically saying you people cannot, and these were indigenous people, that you cannot reproduce. So it just says to me, though, there's got to be something going on that makes people even consider her.
Even consider, well, it's very basic. It's the same reason, like I said before, there's the same reason why people voted for Bush in the second time in 2005.
Name recognition?
No, it's more like...
No, it's different
because
even if you look in the United States, people will argue about Bush's impact around the world.
Yes.
But you can't point to hundreds of thousands of people who were sterilized. You can't point to thousands of people who were disappeared under the Bush administration domestically, right?
Yeah.
The thing is, like, a lot of people may...
Why would people do this with Keiko? It's because they...
Yeah, exactly.
Because it's not enough, the alternative is not strong enough in the positive area.
Right.
You understand? So that's that's why Humala and Keiko, Humala, if he was not a former military with his past shady past, right?
Yeah.
He would be a really, really strong candidate.
So you're saying basically Humala was a member of the military. He actually led an armed revolt against Fujimori in the late 90s.
You know, I just want to bring this up because we keep talking about the power of these images, like the one you just showed with those women. And we already have tweets coming in from Cyber Juan, who's sharing with us more photos from the march against Keiko. And I'm just going to share this because, you know, we use a tool called Storify, and he's actually sharing a Storify, which has a sequence of images from, you know, recent days that highlight a series of different protests against her coming from power. So I'm just going to zoom in a bit here. But my question really is, you know, it seems a lot of female voters are actually supporting her. So why would they be supporting her even though her father has such a bad track record against, oppressing women?
I think maybe first of all, they might have a certain, they identify with Keiko, right? She's extremely young also,
She's
right?
36.
She's not that dangerous. I mean, she comes off as the girl next door a little bit, and, she's a little bit chubby. So she works on TV in that way that she's not dangerous, right?
Mm-hmm.
Also, I think people want to believe.
Yeah.
Not believing in Keiko, but at least giving that vote. Remember that the vote in Peru, it's obligatory once.
Yes. So basically, you have to vote in Peru.
And
if you don't vote, you can be charged.
You can't abstain then.
Yeah. You can vote. You can make a blank ballot or whatever, but you have to show up at the polls.
Yes.
And one of the things that's interesting is one of the people who we spoke to was telling us that, look, people can shift, the electorate can shift very rapidly in the last minutes of a campaign or the last few days because, one, there aren't strong organized political parties, so it's not like there's a movement behind a given candidate, and also because they're required to vote, some people won't say to a pollster what they really believe because it's been such a negative campaign. People feel so strongly. The average citizen may not want to tell a public person what they really think and might change their mind at the polls.
So whoever wins, it's going to be a narrow margin.
It's going to be a narrow margin, which means we're curious as to what could happen afterwards. Now, we're lucky to have joining us now via Skype Isabel Guerra, who is a professor at University San Martin de Porres in Lima, Peru. She writes extensively about Peruvian politics for Global Voices Online. Isabel, thank you so much for joining us. Welcome to the stream.
You're most welcome, Derek. Hi.
It's such a pleasure to have you. I'm curious, we've been talking a little bit about this situation in Peru, and one of the things that we've been looking at is why people are so interested in Keiko Fujimori, given her father's track record. But I want to take a slightly different angle. Talk to us about some of the concerns that people have about Humala. It would seem like an opposition candidate to Fujimori should have a straight shot to the presidency. Why is it so close?
Well, it will be a very long explanation, actually, but let me put it to you this way. The second part of the campaign, that is after the first round, it has been based in fears, in people's fears, because Humala is a former military officer, and he has a radical background. He has been associated to Hugo Chavez, for example, and people is very afraid of coming back to communism or to maybe be involved under Chavez's fears. On the other side, we have Keiko Fujimori, who is the daughter of Alberto Fujimori, our former president, and many people, in fact, thousands of Peruvians remind how many violations to human rights were committed during his government. And that's why both candidates are appealing to the electorate fears. I mean, they are attacking each other using the people's fears. That is the basics.
Now, let me ask you one more question, Isabel, because we understand that Humala actually came out with a very strong, more leftist-oriented stance, and then he got a Brazilian consulting company to help him. Can you still hear us, Isabel? I think we may be having some Skype issues. Okay, unfortunately, we've lost Isabel. But this is one last thing that I wanted to raise, is that we saw that it seemed like Humala was moderating some of his positions after working with the Brazilian consultancy. And it's interesting because a lot of people said that when President Lula, Fernando Inácio da Silva, the former president of Brazil, first came in, I think it was in 2002, a lot of people were like, he's a leftist organizer, he's a populist, a union guy, he is going to ruin the country. And Brazil has actually done quite well under his regime. So is there a possibility that the fears of Ulanta are overblown, or Humala are overblown, or is it really his ties with Chavez are so close that people should be scared?
Normally, that fear when it comes to Latin America is always about the possible nationalization of natural resources.
Yeah.
When it comes to Humala, he doesn't. I can't see it. Maybe I'm totally wrong here. I can't see him have the power to enact a nationalization, for example, of the big mine companies. And it will cost a fortune because right now the copper and gold and all this is very, very high, on all-time highs and all that. So the fear is like to talk about, he's best friends with Chavez. So? His best friends, who cares about that? Because his platform is not based on a nationalization. I don't think the big difference between Humala and Keiko is basically who is going to govern with him. her, right?
Got you. What kind of people are going to surround themselves with?
Keiko, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's a big question. If she's going to surround herself with the kind of people that her dad did, it's a problem. We're going to keep watching out for more information on this story. And remember, if you want us to share your stories, tweet us at AJStream. We always want you, our community, to help keep us informed.
Hi, my name is Osama Daryani. I'm 27 years old. I'm studying photography in New York, and I'm in the stream.
Save our higher education system. That's the message from thousands of young demonstrators in Chile on Wednesday. They're protesting against high university fees that are driving students into massive debt or forcing them to drop out. Activists are also demanding a greater voice in the new education reforms proposed by the government. This issue of student fees is so intriguing to me because it seems to have caused issues in different parts of the world. We saw a protest in the United Kingdom back in the fall about the raising of student fees. We've seen protests in Puerto Rico about the raising of student fees. What makes the situation in Chile interesting is that the government for decades now has reduced spending on the public sector education and basically allowed for a rapid privatization of the Chilean education system, from what we understand. So people are arguing that, well, the education in Chile, higher education in Chile, as far as when you look at it vis-a-vis per capita income, right, GDP per capita income, if the GDP per capita income is around $11,000, $12,000, your school fees at a public university could be about $3,000 up to $9,000 in a private. It's the highest educational cost in the world.
Yes, well, you have to understand that Chile is one of the most privatized countries in the world.
Overall.
I mean, forget Hong Kong.
You're like the fourth person to say this. And when it
comes to education, what they did during the dictatorship, of course, they wrote their own constitution that is still working in Chile, right? We have not changed that. And basically what they did was to take the responsibility of education and they gave it to the municipalities. So the municipalities are actually the ones who are in charge of all the public schools, right? And they get money from the state, right? So in the poor municipalities, they get money per pupil, right? There's a whole system behind that. And this produced an enormous inequality when it came to the quality of each establishment, of course, right? So in 2006, over 1 million students, very young, some as young as 11, 12 years old, went out to march for months, and they took their establishments and schools. Those kids today, 5 years later, right? Imagine if you were 13 back then, or 14 or 15, you're now supposedly in university level, right? And then again, marching.
So it's almost
what
like...
happens is, what happens is mushroomed all these private universities, right? At the same time as the public universities were totally dismantled during the dictatorship with a very large debt burden, right? And after that, never got out of it, right?
So I want to get the voices of a couple of students involved in this, since you mentioned that some people have been participating in these kinds of protests since they were children. This is Giorgio Jackson, who we spoke to earlier today, who is one of the organizers of the current protest. And then we're going to be getting a live voice in it as well.
These demands is access to higher education with more quality and more equity in the system, and social integration. We're here in Chile. We have a highly segregated education system. We have education for rich people and education for poor people. So we need some integration, and we're fighting for it.
Now, as with any story that we covered, there are always multiple sides to it. And so we actually had a chance to speak with a young man who believed in some of the interests of the protesters, but he also had some differences of opinion, which was particularly interesting because he was a student activist himself. Joining us now via Skype from Santiago is Chilean journalism student Max Rubio. He was a student organizer who took part in protests for education reform in Chile while he was an undergraduate. Thank you, Max, for joining us. Welcome to the stream. Tell us a little bit about your impressions of the current protests.
Well, first of all, thank you for this invitation. Well, I think that Montserrat was correct when she said that we have this protest from many years ago, and there the main demand is the same. And there is. The laws are changed. We had a an educational law that came from the Pinochet regime, and there is kind of the same right now. Mm-hmm. So I think that the most important thing is that the educational problem. It's from the basis. I mean, from the schools, from the high school, and then from the universities.
Okay, now, so it's starting out from the lower levels to the higher levels. We're getting some interesting comments online.
Yeah,
about this.
Just to throw this question to you, Rueda Mustafa agrees. She's saying students should protest. She's saying high fees put poor people at a greater disadvantage, and the cycle of poverty continues forever. So if you had to boil this down to one real issue, what would you say is the issue?
Well, first of all, and in response to that tweet, I think that the right of protest it's okay, but today we had like 20,000 students in the street, but it was so peaceful. But there is some people that just destroy this kind of movements. I mean, the violence in the street. It will begin in any minute, so it's not the way. I mean, we have to find some ways to protest or to say what we want to say.
Montserrat, what's your take on it? Do you think that the protests could turn violent?
The thing is, in Chile, we never ever have you seen a protest without tear gas. You get tear gas within 10 minutes of arriving on the scene.
These have not been responded to by tear gas.
Environmental, save the dolphins and the whales.
But in this case, they haven't tear gassed the protesters.
Always, there was tear gas.
But are you saying that they've tear gassed them thus far?
Yes, sure.
Okay,
this is a tradition in Chile to use tear gas.
Gotcha. So you're saying that the violence is going to happen no matter what?
I don't know if that's like protest, tear gas. That's correct. That's always. I mean, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. That's always.
Go ahead, Max. But please finish your point.
But I think that the violence is not coming from the movement, from the educational people, from the students asking for educational reform. It's going from another groups that use this kind of manifestations in the streets to just. I don't know, the anarchism and so on, it's involved in this kind of groups.
It's almost like it gets hijacked. I want you to stay with us, Max, because we want to dive a little deeper into that. Before we go out, let's get a final tweet involved.
Yeah, Len Guarez is saying maybe this doesn't matter at all, because he's saying that university degrees have proven not to guarantee jobs anyway. So there should be, the real attention should be placed on backing up non-formal initiatives and the very elementary education.
Okay, so to that point, I wanted during the post show, I want to talk a little bit more about what is at the root of the economic divide in Chile, which seems to reflect much of Latin America. But we want to thank Max for joining us. We want to thank you also, Montserrat. If you're tuning in on television, we're going to be continuing this conversation on our website at stream.aljazeera.com. Join us in the post show and tweet us at AJStream. We will see you online. Welcome back. This is the Post Show. We're talking about income inequalities and educational inequalities in Latin America, specifically in Chile right now. Montserrat, thank you so much for being with us. We're going to bring Max back as soon as his Skype is clear. Let's talk a little bit about this issue of what is underpinning this. Max, you just made a point that you think anarchists can kind of get involved in these sorts of things. But we saw this tweet that people were saying that, well, there are more fundamental reforms that need to happen. I'm curious if you think that the protesters are protesting for the right thing, or if there are other changes that need to be made in Chilean society first.
Well, in the Chilean educational system, we have this test that is called the PSU. It's like the SAT for the states, and this test, it's kind of unfair because there is a lot of schools that don't have enough knowledge when they go out from the school to the universities. So they're having this test, but they don't know what they are asking for. I mean, they have never studied most of the contents of the PSU.
So you're saying that the schools are, what they're teaching is not getting those kids ready to take the test, so of course they won't do well in the test. If they don't do well in the test, then maybe they can't get into the university they want, or what's the result?
Yeah, that's the point, because they have school. I mean, they have education, but there is, as Giorgio said, there is schools for rich people and schools for poor people. So if we don't have the same education for all the kids, we won't have enough space for them to go to the universities.
Yeah, I would love to get your response to that.
But the thing is that what was fought for in 2006 and today also, the base of it is to take the constitution and say that the state has to be responsible for the education, for public education, and enough of this giving out vouchers and money to these companies, because these are actually companies that have schools and universities.
So now this is one of the issues that was brought up, is the problem of the taxation of the mining companies. Like, we heard that the mining companies in Chile are taxed at something like a 3% rate as compared to something like 65% in countries like Bolivia. I mean, is the government having an equitable policy with these corporations?
Well, the government itself, the state of Chile, maintains itself thanks to the nationalized copper company that's called Codelco, right? It's the largest copper producing company in the world, right? So thanks to that, Chile exists today, right? Something that was nationalized 1972, right?
But is that part of the reason why they have such lower taxation on private companies?
Of course.
Because they feel like they don't need the money.
Well, no, they don't need the money because it's coming in, right? So Chile and Brazil too, right? You can see it. Oh, they're growing so much. And where are they growing? They're growing because of the minerals, right?
How much of that money? How much of that money gets to the actual people? I mean, Max, I want to get your thoughts on this. So people are saying that Chile is doing well economically. Does the average Chilean feel that way?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of funny because Chile is doing good. I mean, as a country, but the distribution of these profits are not so equal. I mean, Chile is one of the countries with the most irregular distribution of money. I mean, we have very, very rich people, and we have a huge mid class, and there is a lot of poor people too. But if we check the laws, the taxes, the minimum taxes law, we will see that there is some companies that have to gain, like their profit must be like, I don't know, like 50,000 millions, and then they are going to pay like the 5% in taxes. That's crazy.
So,
I mean,
so
in Bolivia they're paying like.
Sorry, forgive me, I just want to interrupt you for a sec because we're getting so many tweets from across the world chiming in on this issue of income equality, education inequality. And I love this guy because he always tweets us. His name's Gael Masengi from South Africa. He's saying the students can protest, but if the government isn't doing anything about it, then it's a call in the desert. And he's using the hashtag Peru Vota. But then we also have Chabalisa who's saying, yes, protest, it worked for us in Kenya. The government has to make education affordable and available to all. And in one other country, in Germany, we have a tweet coming from Abbas Govic, who's saying the problem of student fees exists in Germany too, and student demos in Germany have been successful, I'm assuming nonviolent protests, in increasing federal student support. But I understand in Chile, private university students aren't eligible for federal government loans.
That's the thing. That what they're doing is that they go to the banks, right? They hold this whole banking system, and you can actually ask for a loan, right? And the state, it's vouching for that loan, right? Yeah. And the thing is that the upper middle class of Chile and the upper class, they send the kids to University of Chile, which is a public university, the largest one, and the Catholic university, and then you have 27 or 30 private university where the rest send their kids, which obviously are the middle class and lower classes, right? Yeah. And they get indebted forever with this.
Well, this is part of the question, because people are saying that it's becoming more and more expensive, that the actual public universities have been having to raise their fees significantly because they don't get enough government support, and then therefore you're having people, poorer people, actually potentially coming out with more debt and a more difficult time paying for that than the people who get to go to the private universities.
States, you have this enormous that people coming undergrad.
Yeah.
It's $100,000
everywhere.
Yeah.
Yes.
But
the
difference
thing in Chile, which is
the
much
difference
more
is in
important.
the U.S. you actually do
You don't
have
have
financial
protests.
aid options, right?
We don't have protests.
Yeah.
I like that.
Well, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. Well, that's we'll see about what that. But Max, to take it back to you, I mean, you graduated from university. Now you're in school in journalism. What do you see among you and your peers?
Well, there is a thing that it had to be known, that it's the model, the educational model, because in the 70s, the state used to give financials to the universities, but
Yes.
the model is changing to get financials to the students, but they have to get some loan, as Montserrat said, to a bank, but this bank will take from you twice the price of your career, and that's profit. And the profit, it's like forbidden in the educational law. But there is a lot.
Explain what you mean by twice the price of your career. You mean that they're going to charge you based upon what career you're going to go into after school?
Oh yeah, that's another thing.
Let's take this example. I have my career, and it's like $4,000 a year, something like that. Then, if I take these loans with the government or the state as vouching me, I'll have to pay $8,000 a year when I graduate.
What?
You know, they give me the money, but they will take the twice of the price from me.
This is crazy. How can anybody afford to go to school?
So if you, for example, you're journalists, right?
Yeah.
Or if you want to study sociology or art, then the interest goes up. It's 35%, 40%.
Because they feel like it's not a useful field.
Of course, but if you want to be an engineer,
it's
10%
Well,
interest,
here's
or
a
whatever.
question. I don't mean to throw this off topic. I think it really does apply, but it's from Len Guarez, and he's saying maybe not everyone should go to university. I mean, it's true. We're living in an age where there's so much access to information. You can go to, basically educate yourself online. He's saying, nevertheless, some or most of the knowledge that would be imparted in a university should be available informally.
I would strongly disagree, and especially in the Latin American context. And the reason why is because one of the things that is endemic to Latin America, and you see it in a lot of other developing nations, is that it's almost like you have this formalized strata of society. If you're born rich, you stay rich. If you're born poor, you're born poor. If you're in one of the places with that's lucky enough to have a middle class, then maybe you can stick in the middle. But one of the things globally that has been seen as a driver of transition from a lower socioeconomic status to a higher one is education. So you could say if you're in a country that's already wealthy and you have at least some parity and you have the possibility to do things on your own, that forget your university education. But if you don't have that and you're coming from a family that doesn't have connections, your education may be the only thing that could open your doors for you.
If there's a high internet penetration rate. I just want to get, do you guys agree with Derek? I know it does, but that's why I'm asking. Do you agree with him that you have to go to university? To this tree?
I'm not saying you have to go to university. I'm saying that if you say to people in Chile or Peru or anywhere else in Latin America that you could probably educate yourself equally informally, I'm saying how are you going to integrate into the society? What are you going to do?
Yeah, but that's one thing. But the other thing is also that the state should not pay for the companies. I mean, Chile is the basic example in the world of the state that subsidize companies. Our big guys, the big pompous guys that we have down there, the owners of enormous companies, right? They cry every single day. Like if they're gonna put up a little factory, tiny factory, because we hardly manufacture anything, right? They ask the state to pay for the road. Right? And then they ask the state to put up the electricity. And then they ask them to put up a dam for the electricity.
It's corporate welfare. This is another thing that was brought up.
It's corporate welfare, and we are the experiment of the world.
This is another thing that was brought up in another. No, people are saying that it's the most highly privatized country in the world. But the one point that I want to make is that it came up to us as we were saying this, that there are very cozy relationships between people who are high in the business world and high in the governmental sector, just like anything. So when people are saying, well, maybe everyone shouldn't go to university, you got to think about what we're saying here. The reason there's a problem in university is because the government is expending public funds on private enterprise. And you're going to tell some kid, you can't go to school so that this billion-dollar mining company can get better tax breaks?
Yeah.
I mean, it's ridiculous.
Or you couldn't put it better. And also, they're destroying the water. You know that Chile has over 50% of all the glaciers in the world, which means that we have the water of the world, right?
Yeah.
And what we're doing with the mine companies is that the mine companies, quite big companies, they put themselves up there in the Andes, high up, right? They use this beautiful, clean water, right? And they use it to break down the rock.
So this is a story that I want us to get into because we've been hearing a lot about that. That may be one for a future story. Max, thank you so much for joining us from Lima. We really appreciate it, man. Montserrat, you've been amazing. Yeah, we've been amazing. We'd love to have you back. Thanks everyone for joining us here in the post show. We will see you online. Tweet us at AJ Stream. We're back same time tomorrow.